Hey lovelies, I'm Larissa J. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Now today we're continuing our series on biblical femininity. We're actually doing a book review on this book right here. It is Eve in Exile. It's by Rebecca Merkel. A link is in the description box if you want to purchase it. So I'm actually going to review a few chapters in this video. We're going to discuss some key points. So chapter 4, just 2 years after Mary Shelley's book Frankenstein, we talked a little bit about her. Right after that, 2 years, that's when Susan B. Anthony was born. And I know that we are all very familiar with Susan B. Anthony. She was friends with a woman who was named Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They worked together very closely. Stanton was actually married. She had 7 kids. Susan B. Anthony remained single. And she was actually the organizer, the speaker, and the public face of their work. Stanton was more of the intellectual behind the scenes, and she did most of the writing. And then, of course, Susan B. Anthony was the one who was in the forefront, and we know about her. I don't know about you, but until reading this book, I didn't know anything about Elizabeth Stanton. They fought for prohibition and suffrage, which basically meant that they were lobbying to prohibit the sale of alcohol in New York, and they were fighting for women's right to vote. And that's what most of us know Susan B. Anthony for. So the author of this book, Rebecca Merkel, she suggested the possibility that the reason why Susan B. Anthony's face is on the coin instead of Stanton is because Stanton was a married mom of 7 and Anthony was unmarried and childless. She says that apparently Anthony's being childless was viewed as a bigger advantage than Stanton's being gifted and smart and educated. It's food for thought. What do you think? Let me know down below. It's interesting, as you clearly see, that there is an agenda. Even all of those years ago, there's been an agenda. We see the agenda now. There was an agenda then. Back then, the early feminists had to renounce sexual activity in order to be married to their careers. That's just how it was. They just couldn't be sleeping around. There was no birth control. And if a woman didn't understand how her body worked, which many women today still do not because they don't teach it, then sex would often lead to pregnancy. So there was a woman named Margaret Sanger. You may have heard of her before. She came onto the scene to change all of that with her crusade for birth control. Feminists like her believed that it was unfair that men could do whatever they wanted, but women who had sex outside of marriage had to deal with the consequences and the burden of raising a baby all alone. Now, of course, with all of these people, there's always so much more that you can learn. This is kind of more of a surface, but I've definitely heard things about Margaret Sanger. Let me tell you this, and then I'll tell you what I additionally have heard. Margaret Sanger's first clinic opened its doors in 1916, and it later became what we know as Planned Parenthood. This happened just 4 years before the suffrage was achieved and women gained the right to vote. So there was Planned Parenthood that was open, and then suffrage was achieved and women could finally vote. Planned Parenthood today is the single largest provider of abortion in America. I'm sure you've heard of it. All of this is as a result of the work of Sanger. She believes that birth control should maximize the number of births from the fit and minimize the number of births from the unfit. Now, this is the additional information that I've actually come across recently since reading this chapter. Was that she was, it talks about being fit and unfit. She actually had an intent on minimizing the births of the Black community, which I found very interesting. Her line of thinking was that Blacks were unfit and did not need to be populating as much. And so the ironic thing is many of the abortions that take place are from the Black community. It's really sad, actually, and especially knowing everything that we know that's happened in society, especially with Planned Parenthood and everything. It's just something to consider. That was the original intent. And I think sometimes it's important to slow down and really think about the intent of a thing instead of just hopping on a bandwagon and fighting for you may not even know, really. So just wanted to throw that out there. She did die in 1966. And now with all of this history, I want to remind you that her belief system was anti-biblical and anti-Christ. We are simply covering this information in the book to give you an understanding of the origin of how things came to be the way that we know them today. This is what always gets me, right? Why is it so difficult for people to just be obedient to the word of God? The Bible clearly instructs us not to fornicate. It clearly talks about not having sex outside of marriage. That means women and men should not be having sex outside of marriage. Period. You know how many issues would be eliminated? How many struggles would not be in existence if people would just be obedient and do what the word says? The Bible says, don't have sex outside of marriage. Man, woman, period. If you want to have sex, you need to be married. That's what it says. It is what it is. And if you want to be sexually active, get married. Period. That's it. But, our culture acts as if God was just talking to be talking, and they try to find other solutions like birth control and abortion so that they can feel that it's okay to fornicate. And they believe that it's without consequence, still with consequence, but that's what they believe. Just because a pregnancy may be prevented does not mean that they get to live life free of consequences, especially when you're disobedient to God and his word. All right, so in chapter 5, this covers the mentality of women back in the 50s. Rebecca Merkel, she shared how there were ads that reinforced the narrative that homemaking was a dead-end, humiliating, and demeaning job. This was the mentality that was taking place back in the 50s. Honestly, when it comes to this topic, I believe that a lot of it is mentality. We see a certain way of doing things on TV, right? In movies and social media and books, and it becomes ingrained in our minds that this is the way that we should be doing things. And it becomes reality, even if it's a false narrative. Merkel introduces a woman by the name of Betty Friedman. Back in 1963, she published a book called Feminine Mystique, which basically articulated that women who were wives and mothers were unhappy and unfulfilled. And she suggested that women seek fulfillment in the workplace and get a career. As a result, this second wave feminism now, more women are working and less women are focused on becoming wives and mothers. But I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Happiness and fulfillment are not meant to come solely from a husband or children or material things. It's not the way that it's supposed to be. Joy and fulfillment come from a personal relationship with Jesus and by being obedient to his commands, which includes serving others. And we actually talked about that in another video about fulfillment, finding fulfillment in life. So check that out if you haven't watched it. But I could literally wrap this video up with that alone. However, there's a lot more information in this book. The book is a good read, right? So if you have not read it, you've not checked it out, like I said, the link is down in the description box so that you can check it out. I recommend. It's a lot of information. It's really good. Especially because I really can't cover it all. Okay, so check out the link in the description box. I challenge you to be prayerful this year about God's purpose for you in your life, especially in the society we live in today, where there's just certain things that are being pushed, certain narratives that are being pushed, certain teachings that are just off and false and incorrect. Really encourage you to seek the Lord for your purpose. There are many women who live their life in a way that they want, and they prioritize things only to look up, and they're like 40, 50, 60, and they realize that they're single and they don't want to be because they followed along with this narrative. At minimum, women will say, I imagine myself with, in a relationship. Nobody wants to be alone. We weren't made to be alone. After a while, all that working and grinding and hustling wears off, and women find that they want companionship and they don't want to keep working hard, working like a dog. All right, so on to chapter 6. This chapter had a lot of food for thought. Rebecca Merkel, she talked about housewives of the 1950s and how they no longer had a challenging vocation as a housewife due to the sudden wealth in America. Now, many years ago, women had to work really hard to feed their families, to clothe their families. They had to grow their own gardens. They had to tend to the garden. They had to harvest the garden. They had to can the food, dry the food, preserve the food. They had to chase their chickens, kill the chickens, pluck the chickens, cook the chickens, right? They had to sew and make their clothing, their quilts, and all of that. I mean, honestly, many of us don't even know how to do half of that stuff, which is so sad. Like, what is up with our culture? Oh my goodness. Okay. Then when America advanced and became wealthy, that changed. Things got easier for housewives. There was no need to grow a garden and chase your chickens. And feed you could feed your family with a TV dinner, right? Pop it in the oven. Now we can just go to the store and buy a coat for our kid. We don't have to go and make it, sew it, grab old shirts, and we don't have to do stuff like that. And as a result, women became under-challenged and they became unhappy with being housewives, which makes sense. I hear that many women say that they couldn't be home all day or they'd go crazy. But could it be for lack of challenge? I mean, if you throw your clothes in the washing machine, you watch TV while your kids are at school, you tell Alexa to go look some things up for you, to play a song for you, you run to Chick-fil-A, go pick up dinner for your family, I imagine that would be a boring, unfulfilling life. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Everybody's doing everything for you. There's no challenge in that lifestyle. But even in today's society, it doesn't have to be that way. A housewife who does her due diligence can get way more of a challenge than that. There's so much that can be done around the home. There's so much that can be done for your husband and your children that can leave a diligent homemaker's day full and leave her tired and fulfilled and ready to get a good night's sleep. It is possible. Okay. So then we're gonna go ahead and wrap this video up with chapter 7, because the 1950s housewife was discontent. She turned to feminism. Okay. There was a blessing in the advancement of technology and opportunity for housewives, but instead of being grateful and seeking to improve further and achieve more, they began to complain. They became bored and fussy, like the Israelites. She compares them to the Israelites in the wilderness. These women complained about the blessings of God. The country was becoming more wealthy. The country was evolving. Technology was evolving. And yet women were complaining and saying they were unfulfilled and they weren't happy doing what they're doing, instead of thanking God for the blessing of advancement and growth and looking for ways to multiply that and looking for ways to find fulfillment in that. This is when women began to demand respect. They wanted to be seen as capable of impressive, challenging, and important things. Feminists believe that women needed to be liberated from domesticity and motherhood. But even after all of the changes that were made in the name of feminism, it was found that women were still unhappy. At the end of this chapter, Rebecca Merkel emphasizes that while it's important to know what you're fighting against, it's equally important to know how to fight and why you're fighting. And I thought that was really good. She articulates it very, very well at the end of the chapter, and it would just take me a while to go through that. So I encourage you to check that out for yourself. She did a really great job with it. At the end of the day, if you're a Christian, Jesus and the Word of God are your final authority. That is where your belief system comes from, and it is how you know what to fight against, how to fight against it, and why. This has been a great book study so far. We're going to knock it out in another video, so make sure that you stay tuned. Please make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and make sure that you hit the subscribe button so that more women can be encouraged by these videos. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.